Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Women in Cricket discussion. For those of you who are new here, my name is Shari, and today we are focusing our conversation on the females playing a vital role behind the scenes. In our previous discussions, we would have spoken about the various job opportunities apart from playing the game. Joining me today, we have longstanding cricket administrator at the Wanderers Club, as well as scorer at local, regional, and international level. And she's also chairperson of the BCA's Rules and Regulations Committee, Mrs. Susan Bell. We also have Ayana Holder, a graduate with a BSc in Sports Science. She's an umpire, scorer, and a co-host of an online cricket program. Lastly, she's an administrator for cricket activities in the Eden Lodge community. Ladies, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Sure.
Yes,
so
definitely.
before I start, how are you doing? I know we haven't seen each other for a really long time due to the pandemic. So what's new?
Well, obviously a lot of cricket has still been going on around the world, but I, for one, certainly miss the local cricket on the local scene because by this time of the year, we would have gone through quite a few practice matches and all that. But otherwise, I've had both of my vaccines and I am feeling very confident to be back out on the in the pavilion again, scoring and waiting for that call.
What about you, Ayana? How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, I took the positives out of COVID, One of my new hobbies is reading, particularly self-development books, trying not to get in so much screen time. Been watching cricket on television, was a bit shook, after the IPL had to be postponed. And looking forward, well, I'm not like Miss Bell. I'm halfway through the vaccination stage. I got my first dose, so I'm awaiting my second dose. But I'm looking forward to getting back out onto the field. Also would like to do some scoring as well, get comfortable in the pavilion. And I also have some more activities that I would like to work on, especially for young girls in the community.
Yeah, well, we will expand on that later on in the discussion. But before we start, let's go back to the beginning. Susan, how long have you been participating in cricket? How long have you been with the Wanderers Club?
Well, I didn't start with Wanderers Club. My son, Gary's name comes up frequently, and I have him to blame in involved in cricket and also to thank. When he's now 34, so 25 years ago, when he was playing cricket at St. Cyprian's, I would go and accompany the boys to the matches. And one time, this teacher who was scoring needed to go on the field and umpire, so he gave me the scorebook, and I said, "What am I supposed to?" And he said, "Just look and see what the other person is doing." And that was where it started. Same thing happened at Combermere School after Gary went there. And I continued scoring for Combermere long after he left, and interchanging with Wanderers. He went to Wanderers, and I didn't go up to Wanderers right away. That would have been he's now 34, so that was nearly 20 years ago, let's say 18 years ago. And from there, you just start, you help out first, and they offer you an opportunity to get a little, a little stipend. And then I would have traveled with him to the under 15 tournament in Trinidad. And again, I'm a person who kind of like gets involved. If I see something, I say something. I went asking the scorers a few questions, and then they told me, "Well, just stick around with us because we don't know the players. You can help us out." And by the time I came back to Barbados, there was a still scoring course. There was one available, and they asked me if I was interested. And from there, the same year I was then scoring first division. And then I scored for the combined schools when the BCA wanted a scorer. And very soon after, I had an opportunity to score my first test. That was 2002. The first that was the test, it was West Indies playing against New Zealand at the Old Kensington, and I would have to say I didn't look back. And then in 2013, I was called to replace Mr. Fortune as the scorer at Kensington, and I can safely say that I have scored almost every game that has played, international game that has been played at Kensington since then, since 2013. But all along it has been Commonwealth Wanderers, whenever Commonwealth travel, trial games, wherever they call me, the women's games, but I've enjoyed it all.
Yeah, that is quite the accomplishment though. And what about you, Ayana? How long have you been involved in cricket? And do you recall who would have given you your start?
Well, Miss Bell has Gary to blame, and I have my father to blame. I can't ever talk about my introduction to cricket without talking about my father, Wayne Holder. He used to have a skateball competition at the lumber company. So he would make sport and tell me that I was at cricket even before I was born, because obviously my mother would have been pregnant with me and going to cricket. So that was really, it really is in my blood. But the working aspect, one thing I forgot to tell you about was my reporting stint with the Nation Publishing Company, which came through my father. I can't remember the year, but a lot of the reporters were working at CPL, so there was a shortage. And I think it was Hayden Gill asked my dad if he thinks I would be comfortable, if I would be up to the task. And it showed me that those weekends I told my father, Dad, I want to write it. You can edit it after it paid off. Later on, I got into scoring almost accidentally. I had always been exposed, been around Miss Bell and a lot of the other scorers around the country. And I was traveling to support Shamar. He had been selected, Shamar Holder that is, he had been selected to represent combined campuses and colleges at Super 50. And on my way to St. Kitts, I had to overnight in Antigua. And Woody, who worked at Cricket West Indies at the time, asked me if I had my laptop, if I had Total Cricket Scorer. And I said, well, I don't have it, but if you need me to, I will get it. So I asked my aunt to purchase it for me. And I don't know if Miss Bell recalls, but the first day or so, I think I was bombarding Miss Bell on WhatsApp because I had been scoring. They had some challenges at a country ground in St. Kitts, and the scorers were not very experienced, and they asked me if I could help out at the time. So Miss Bell, I don't know if I ever thank you for that, but I will take this time here now to thank you for your help on that Super 50 gig. And from there, scoring took off. I scored for Barbados Youth, trial matches, women's matches. Another part of my involvement in the game is operating the big screen at Kensington Oval. Miss Bell will always send a message down to assist us and make sure that we get it right. The umpiring aspect came. I had always been asked if I don't want to umpire, but I was at university, and at the time I didn't know if I want to pursue it while I was doing my first degree. And I find that I'm really loving umpiring because I don't think that I was skilled enough to play the game. On top of an injury that I had when I was very young. I broke my arm and had screws in my elbow. So I never pursued the game, but I think that was probably a blessing in disguise. So I think the area that I'm in now is probably where I'm supposed to be.
So I have to ask before we even go any further, because many of us are not lucky like you to work with a parent. So what has that experience been like working with your dad?
It it has been a humbling experience, because it has taught me a lot of life lessons. I really show you what unconditional love is. My dad and I, we don't agree on everything, but it doesn't make me love him any less. We just move on. We accept that we have different perspectives and we don't hold it against one another. He has also allowed me to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
We could share honest feedback with each other and not feel attacked. And that is, it has helped me to deal with people on a day-to-day basis. So it has its challenges, but it's very fun.
Okay. And what I like is that just now you gave Suzanne her flowers. And Suzanne, I just want to say on behalf of BCA, we truly appreciate all your efforts, all your hard work. It does not go unnoticed. So Ayana, I thank you for even bringing it up. So that we really appreciate you. And now that we are here, today's discussion is mainly about umpiring, scoring, and females in this business and some of the challenges that these females face while doing these roles. So what are some of the challenges, Ayana, that you would face being a female umpire?
Well, the first thing guys would say is that, what you doing out here? You should be in the kitchen. I remember one game, a guy asked me if I had a boyfriend, and I was like, what does that have to do with the cricket? Though, like, what are you bowling? Are you bowling right time wrong, right time over? Like, let's deal with the on field, what we need to deal with cricket. So a lot of the times you get a lot of chatter. Sometimes they will get flirtatious, and you just have to let them know, like, let's deal with the cricket. I haven't had too many experiences, probably because I am a bit familiar with most stuff from my involvement with cricket. So it's just about gaining that respect. And I think that once you gain that respect, guys know that they can't come around you with foolishness.
Right. And what about you, Suzanne? You've been around for quite a while. Are there any challenges that you would have faced along the way?
Well, first of all, let me acknowledge Ayana's recognition. I remember very, very well communicating with her when she was in St. Kitts at that tournament. And I would say I have a week when I'm scoring, even sometimes when I'm not scoring, because I would have handed over the main scoring at Wanderers to Melissa. Melissa King. I have helped a lot of youngsters, both boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes some older people as well, to, if they have any situations that they need help with, or whether it be the software or the actual cricket aspect of the scoring. I've done that from the time that I learned to use the Total Cricket Scorer. So whenever anyone calls me, it's really quite easy to I always say I can do it in my sleep. I just know the program that well. So it is always it always gives me a good feeling when somebody else can learn, because whenever I know that by the time I'm finished, that person now can teach somebody else.
True.
And I find that our scoring training is a little too informal. This new role in terms of the umpires, but the match officials training to in my role as the Rules and Regulations Subcommittee Chair, that was recently added this year. Obviously, with the COVID and all that, things have not, we haven't really started that aspect of it as yet. But I look forward to being able to regularize scorers as well as it says scorers and umpires, but I think that just as important are the match referees.
Match referees, yes, yes.
Match referees. And right now, the age of match referee, we have the umpires, we have a lot of very young umpires coming in to kind of like, not replace, but the senior umpires, the experienced umpires. But when it comes to the match referees, I would just guess and say that the average age of the match referees must be in the late 60s if you go for an average. And we don't have any young or middle, let's say in the 50s, even 40s and 50s. We really could do with some match referees in that age group. So that is one of the challenges that we have not. I think that we need to do a little more to attract and encourage people to do the match refereeing, but because the Umpires Association is doing a very good job with the umpires.
Mm-hmm.
And I always encourage the scorers as well to do the umpires course, even if they're not going to be umpiring on the field. I did it myself back in 2000 and 2008 and I am so happy to see Ayana and some of the other young ladies on the field, because a lot of people do the umpires course, but don't necessarily go on the field.
Right. So my question is, you spoke about the match referees and the scorers and the umpiring. I would ask you now, how do you think the BCA can enhance or assist or even support elevating these roles more? Because like you said, is dwindling, and we really can do it more.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I say that I would like to just like how the umpires advertise and say that the course is starting with this year, 2021. We did the umpires training entirely online. The examinations were done online. In fact, Ayana is a member of the training committee. And we did everything via Zoom and WhatsApp. And, they did their exams and everything. And I think that the match referees the BCA should advertise, put a the marketing committee, have a kind of like an encouraging advertisement for people who are interested in match refereeing, because there are a lot of players who don't play anymore, former players, and who would like to get involved. But I personally think that people believe that it is a little bit of a, closed shop, that, oh, well, you should have done this at a certain level. I think that you should have umpired. I personally think so, that you should, even if you were not an umpire on the field, you should know the rules. You should have passed the umpire's course. That should be a requirement. And I would hasten to add that a lot of players, even players who made it to the highest level, their interpretation of the rules is not always what the rules are trying to say. In other words, I think that even players should do the umpire's course. My thought is an all-encompassing thought, because I've had discussions / disagreements. I don't want to go as far as saying arguments, because I don't really like to argue, but we've had differences of opinion on the interpretation of a particular rule or law. And I know it because I was trained it. I went to training, But some people will say, well, I play the cricket. You never played cricket. And then it's like, okay, well, I leave it up to you. I play the cricket, but I know the laws, right? And I know that this happens to us frequently. So it always pleases me to see the scorers. I think all scorers and all match referees, the first thing they should do is to join the Umpires Association, do the umpires course, as we call it. That means going through the laws and taking the exam. And right now, I also propose to the BCUA to set about investigating how to change the Barbados Cricket Umpires Association, the bylaws and the constitution to include scorers and match referees, so that we will all be under the same umbrella. We'll be trained in the same laws of cricket and the regulations, because even though the laws of cricket are standard, regulations for each competition have different requirements depending on what the BCA wants, and that's where my committee comes in as well. We usually vet the regulations, but the umpires get together as a group and discuss it. And if scorers and match referees can be involved in the association, then we can all be trained at the same time together, and we'll be reading from as the proverbially the same hymn sheet.
Okay, Ayana, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just to add, to reiterate what Ms. Bell said, it's all about cooperation. And some more experienced umpires, and even Ms. Bell could tell you that sometimes the on-field umpires are on one page, the match referees on another, and there's a slight, like they butt heads a little bit. And it's really from a place of not knowing, and each person has a different interpretation, and sometimes it could affect the flow of the game. And, we talk about egos. Sometimes those get in the way. And if we are all under the same umbrella, someone wouldn't really have the opportunity to say, well, I am a match referee, you are an umpire. We are all match officials, and we all need to work together. Getting the players, especially our professional cricketers, involved in the training is an area that I think we really need to tap into. This year we had Ashley Nurse. He did the course. I think he was doing the course alongside. He came into the course late, really, because of the Super 50, but he had always been eager. And I think that the Umpiring Association can have different workshops, working with the Center of Excellence, working with the St. Barbados Pride, to really educate the guys and girls, so that when they go onto the field, they have the knowledge and know exactly what they're doing on the field.
Right, which means it just comes down to mentorship and having these programs in place. So where do you think is missing the support to get these things going? I
think that the onus, because the BCA is major, we also have BCL, but as we all know, that is not as active. Right. I think that the onus is on the BCA to just step out of the box a bit and just start, make a start to it, change things slightly, accept that people have a contribution to make, even if they did not play cricket, local level, regional level, or the highest level. And that also is also kind of like reflected in the remuneration for scorers, and you know, and people who work while the cricket is being played, because as a scorer we have to watch every ball. Sometimes we don't even get to eat between innings and all that. I think that a little more respect needs to be paid to scorers, not just calling you to do a game. And you know, well, I wouldn't go into the sum of money, etc. We do it for the love of it. The money accumulates, and if we were doing it just for money, we probably wouldn't do it, right? But we love the cricket. We love being there. Some the spin-offs. Ayana was able to go to, she went on her own to see her cousin play, and she ended up doing some scoring. And then, you know, she would do some reporting on the side. She would do some no, she's an umpire, so that's a different level. That is progress. But people need to recognize, to be more encouraged that this can happen. When the High Performance Center was based in Barbados, I was selected, well, I was asked to be their scorer, and I accepted. And that led to not only scoring, but a certain level of mentorship. A lot of those guys were away from their homes in the other islands, and you know, they would come and talk to me, and they would ask questions. There's certain things, you know, most of them call me mums, you know, which is but a respectful way to address an older lady. Anyhow, I've remained close to some of them. This team that won in Bangladesh, I think 9 of the 11 were HBC graduates. But I also had an opportunity to do a couple of scoring workshops with as well, right? And the things that the HBC did in their overall program, HBC was only a selected like 15 for a year. I think probably about 50 people were trained in all. If their program could be passed on to or aspects of it could be passed on to the Center of Excellence, where it's not just cricket. Well, I don't know exactly what the Center of Excellence, but I could say that the program with the HBC would have been training in life skills. It would have been money management. It would have been dieting, nutrition, etiquette. Mm-hmm. Basically not only about playing cricket, but also about life, right? And those skills I think that those skills can be passed on to the same young gentlemen and ladies who the BCA is working extremely hard with in the Center of Excellence.
Okay, and what about attracting more females? Because I find that ladies shy away from the game of cricket. So how can we attract more females to come in and do some of these programs, come and learn about umpiring, scoring, match refereeing? How can we get them and attract them into this?
Well, as Ayana became interested through her father and then through her cousin. With me, it was not son, but I call them all my sons. His teammates all belong to me. Mamir, Wanderers, wherever else. They come in, and we are not the only ones who would have been encouraged to start off by helping out and then be asked to score. So it is usually relatives and friends of players who end up being involved because they come to cricket to support their person. And you sit down, cricket is nothing else to do unless you bring a book to read or if you're working. Sure. So I can't even say how many girls and guys that I encourage come and sit here next to me, or they would look and see what I'm doing is, can I do that? I said, it's so easy to do. You have a computer, let me show you some tips. And I don't know how many of them I have actually brought on to do that. And it's just taking that first step. So maybe when we have when we start to train, and I looking ahead now, when we start to train the cricketers, we can say, bring somebody with you, bring somebody that you know will want to be there, because I cannot be there every week. Ayana may not be able to be there every week. Every year, there's somebody has a wedding, somebody may have a family gathering, and you have to find somebody who can hold on for me now. Who will I get to hold on for me? So the more, the better. And I found that because of the sharing, I call it sharing. When I first went into when I first started to use the Boxer system, and I was showing somebody, I was told, why are you showing so many people? That means that somebody else can be called to score, and you can get left out. I said, well, if I cannot score, I would like to know that the person who's replacing me is capable. And in the last Gary Sobers tournament in 2019, for about 5 or 6 years, was responsible for getting the scores together for the media. Maybe more than that, but I was, the last tournament, we actually had a pool of scorers that I would assign to matches. Ayana was she was my early choices, but she wasn't available because she had to do something else. So I really had to make sure that I ended up using people that I did not even know, and I had to work really, really hard to get to what I wanted out of them because they were not familiar with me. But I know that by the end of that tournament, so many people had better skills in scoring that they could have passed on. And I would have also done that during the counties, when the counties used to come to Barbados for their pre-season training. I was asked, look, see if you can do this, see if you can do that. And you end up, sometimes a day would come and you say, but who am I going to get today? And then you discover that who were capable that you were not sure of, that somebody else recommended, but everybody is never on the same page. If we can get it done formally, it is not as difficult as it used to be because of the computers. And I also believe that if you can score on paper, it helps, because sometimes the computer restarts itself and all that, so you have to know what to add in. This also, for my part, this would also have led to streaming, again through Gary and Bell Imagery, and that I ended up having to do that last year when he went overseas, and we would be using a program from New Zealand that when I see other teams use it now, I say, wow, that I had experience using that. And if we have the opportunity, I would really like, I always say, I would like to make sure that as many people as possible know how to use these things, because it is not Suzanne Bell, it is Barbados that is being reflected in everything that we do.
So if we had to come to Suzanne Bell and we say, well, Mrs. Bell, we would like to do a mentorship program, is that something that you'll be willing to participate in?
Most definitely.
Okay, great. Ayana, what about you? What is your take on attracting more females?
I think representation really matters. And this webinar itself, I'm sure, is going to raise eyebrows, get people interested, get people thinking. And an experience I will share, I met a TV broadcast director through working the TriCast for the big screen for international cricket. And I was fortunate enough to be on a gig for A-team cricket where it was touring. And I had worked with them before in a different role, production assistant. And at probably 23 years old or so, I saw figures that I hadn't known about. I had never seen other than in a math class. And I mean, now in COVID times, it is a bit difficult, but once it is flowing, you know, you can see the benefit, the reward is a pretty decent one, you know, and I try to share my experiences as much as possible to get persons involved. Even in umpiring, some persons ask, well, why are you going into umpire? And I told them that my aspiration is really to become an international umpire. And even with the amount of cricket that's playing these days, I think that you still have the opportunity to go, quote unquote, global, even if you don't go on the international stage. But I think that representation matters, sharing our stories really matter. And it's just about helping young girls to be able to identify with figures. I see in Jamaica, they're building this this walk of fame, like they have pictures of cricketing icons, and I see Stephanie Taylor, and I know what seeing Stephanie Taylor there will do to a little girl. I have a younger cousin who goes to cricket with me. I remember one of my first umpiring pictures and under 15 game at Carson College. She came there. She was like, "That's Ayana? I didn't know Ayana could do that." And I think it made her feel good to see her big cousin out on the field doing something that she don't normally see females doing. So just to sum it up, representation and help and just having that image for younger girls to see that they can do this too.
True.
I've also heard others talk about taking the cricket into the schools. Now, I was also a member of the Women's Committee for quite a few years. And we talked about that. That always came up. But it's like sometimes you get resistance from principals. Sometimes people don't like the idea of men training girls.
Right.
And I think that we have enough girls now, enough females, and I think quite a few of them have also are also qualified coaches. We need to kind of like revamp, have a more holistic showcase what we have, the quality. Look, these girls played, kind of like show their credentials. If principals are like a little bit skeptical about having men train the girls, let's show them, look, we also have females who are capable. And I also heard talk about having softball competitions. Now, we who would have done like the child protection certificates or those things know that you can't just go out there and say, boom, we're gonna train you. That was okay for when like I was growing up and we are, you know, in the gap. You can go and do those things. But nowadays, there's so much things that can go wrong that people can be kind of like held responsible for. That it all comes back down to, once again, money, because you can't expect people to do these things for free. And that money is in short supply. But something, I do not have all the answers. I can only make certain suggestions, but I think that the females now who would have made it to the highest level, some of them can can be encouraged to come back and give back and kind of like make things look more comfortable for not only school head teachers, but parents as well.
All right. Ayana, my question to you is, for females who may be interested after seeing this, what are the requirements for pairing to do a course?
There really isn't a requirement for pairing, to be honest. Persons who are interested, they can see our contact details on social media, BCU8246 on Instagram and Facebook. That is our social media page. Ms. Bell mentioned earlier that I am on the training committee, and coming out of the last course that we had, I think that we did a reasonably good job the first time around sharing it virtually. But as always, I think that there are areas to improve to capture the younger audience, because we had a lot of younger persons this time around, a couple scorers as well. And I think a couple who told, one or two who told me that they're actually interested in going on to the field. That really, really pleased me. And one of the suggestions I would like to make for the training is that we don't have to necessarily reserve it to one time of the year. I think that we can, it generally goes probably about 6 to 8 weeks. And I think that in Barbados, we are lucky enough that we generally have organized cricket playing all year round, whether it is through the BCA or if it is youth tournaments organized by youth coaches, that umpires have the opportunity to go on the field and showcase their skills. I think that is something that we can look at. It allows persons an additional opportunity to join the association rather than having to wait for a particular time of the year to join.
Okay, well,
get back to the question of what I mentioned just now about everything taking money. Mm-hmm. I think that the clubs can be encouraged to assist their own by raising money. The original question is how the BCA can enhance the existing assistance to clubs. We know that the BCA pays the umpires and provides clothing and balls, but I also think that we have to some kind of way of encouraging the clubs to raise money for themselves, because we all know from when we were children, if your parent just give you money without you having to do anything for it, you don't want to do anything because you know that you're going to get the money anyhow. Yeah. So the BCA cannot give the clubs everything, but we have to find some way of helping the clubs to help themselves. Some clubs do it very well. Some clubs don't have much overheads and expenses, so it is easier. But some clubs, other clubs, I should say, have their own premises and have to pay land tax and the water bill. I heard Adam from Wanderers make a point the other night about trying to get domestic rates rather than commercial rates for electricity and water. All those things can really help a club that doesn't really make a lot of money to start with. They depend on prize money from if they win anything, and if you're a club that comes to doesn't make it into the top 4 or top 3, depending on the competition, you don't get anything at all. But I also think that winning clubs kind of attract more people. But if a club is doing well, also it can consider having a separate program for female. That's another thing that's not really encouraged. It was talk about it, but it needs a little more input and thought into having females who actually not only just belong to the club but can play.
Great. Diana, you have anything to add?
The last thing I wanted to add, as Ms. Belto spoke about raising funds last year, I was a part of the planning committee for the ANA Other Part Arrow Holder T10 competition, and that was an eye-opener into the real operations side of hosting a tournament. And we were lucky enough to secure some funds from the sponsor in the Other Part to really be able to boost to get it going. When they endorsed it, we knew that we were going to have a competition, but up until then, we had just spoken about it. And it had some, we had our difficulties with the weather. We had some difficulties with teams as well. Whenever people involve conflict in a race. But it showed me that being in charge of a tournament, being in charge of a club is not very easy. And the BCA offsets a lot of things for clubs this side of the world. But we still need to give ourselves that additional boost to really stay afloat, because it's not easy. And I really understand what Ms. Bell is saying about clubs needing to do for themselves, because if clubs fall apart, I really don't know where cricket would stand.
Right. Plus, for the last 2 years, because of COVID, a lot of clubs have not been active. So it's going to be a task. I know we have a long journey ahead, but I'm sure we'll get through. Ladies, we've come to the end of our discussion. Any final words?
I want to say thanks to the BCA for helping both of us, kind of like have our faces out there, all three of us. And I hope that we, as Barbadians, can behave responsibly in these next few weeks so that we can get some cricket, please.
We can get some cricket.
Yes, everybody. It depends on everybody. But thank you so very much for asking us to share our thoughts.
Sure. Your contributions have been very valuable this evening, and I thank you for participating. Diana and Susan, I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion, and I look forward to seeing you soon, because I know we haven't seen each other for a really, really long time. Today would have been the first in probably a year, or even more than a year. So it's really good to see you, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.